Buongiorno a tutti.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here at our last session of works. This is a public session. Anyway, it is a very concrete and tangible session that will illustrate very specific cases. I'm going to ask Mr. Matteo Frasca to officially open this day of studies. He's the president of the Court of Appeal here in Palermo.
Grazie, Gianni.
Thank you, Gianni. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Palermo.
Welcome to Palermo. E per me è un grande onore.
It is a great honor for me to host in this Palace of the Courts such an important event on the 32nd anniversary of the massacre of Capaci. Thank you, Mr. Marillo, for having organized such an important international event. And Mr. Marillo has insisted to hold such an event in these courts, where Giovanni Falcone, Paolo Borsellino, and Francesca Morvillo used to work. Special greetings to Mr. Guarnotta, Mr. Natoli, Mr. De Francisci, who are the components, along with Mr. Falcone and Mr. Borsellino, of the historical Anti-Mafia team formed by the judge Rocco Chinnici. So this is the place where our collective memory is preserved. This building is a symbol. Just like the bunker hall is a symbol where the MAECI trial was held, thanks to their investigation innovations, thanks to their strength, thanks to their determination in fighting against Cosa Nostra and in realizing the necessity to fight the mafia in a professional and organized way. I want to pay a special tribute to Giovanni Falcone. In the 1980s, where Cosa Nostra was not very well known, Giovanni Falcone had seized the importance of cooperating at an international level in order to fight the mafia, and especially in drug trafficking, which was the most effective business for them. The characteristics of the routes of drug trafficking had been described. Giovanni Falcone had realized that the mafia was taking advantage of the same routes used for the illicit sales of tobaccos, and he was very worried because national states were not able to contrast the mafia because they were lagging behind in terms of legislations and techniques. Giovanni Falcone criticized the obstacles that he found on his route to investigate banks and what happened behind those closed doors. He was aware that corruption had a strong presence in the city of Palermo. During the trial against Mr. Spatola, which was not very well known to common people, during that trial, Giovanni Falcone was able to consolidate the collaboration with some people abroad, in the US, basically. In 2020, a resolution was passed, and it was inspired by Giovanni Falcone's work, and it was approved unanimously by that conference held in 2020. Nobody is considered as a prophet in their own country. This is a motto that can be easily applied to Giovanni Falcone, who was not approved, who was not guaranteed support, while he was firmly believing in the state and in his mission as a worker of the state, as a representative of the state. He was very determined. He was resilient. He really believed in the rule of law, and he had a strong leadership attitude, but at the same time, he was able to work in a group. His attitude was to form a team and to work together with mutual support. But he was also aware that he was in real danger, and he had probably foreseen his tragic death. He was not welcome in this building because he was considered maybe too proud, so he was not considered in a positive way. He had many enemies within this same building. Today, despite the great commitment by the judiciary, Giovanni Falcone's work has not come to an end, and the battle is far from over. He has taught a lot to us in terms of values, in terms of the value of justice and legality. And he also has conveyed to citizens that our state, our republic must be democratic and must strive in the framework of legality. His intuitions, his modern attitude are now an asset for everybody. That's his legacy. We have to update his legacy according to the new technical instruments that are constantly updating and that are constantly being used by the criminal groups. Giovanni Falcone's method is considered as the state-of-the-art worldwide. He talked about prevention measures. He made advantage of people who had confessed and repented. Our task now is to follow his track and to continue working like he did. That's why I'm certain that these days of conference, these days of study and in-depth work will contribute to commemorate Giovanni Falcone and will demonstrate that Giovanni Falcone is actually still alive. Thank you.
Allora, tutti gli indirizzi di saluto dovranno contenersi nei 5 minuti.
Please, I remind you that every greeting presentation, every greeting speech should be limited to 5 minutes. I want to welcome all the illustrious guests and all the colleagues who are here today. Criminal groups are very fast and they need to be tackled in a very efficient way. In December 2000, the UN Convention Against Organized Crime allowed to generate very important results from a judiciary point of view. But of course, it is necessary to go on working in this sense. There are about 3,600 criminal groups who are active and committing crimes in Europe. Most times they have connections with narco cartels in Latin America and the Caribbean. So there are networks covering different countries, even very distant from each other. These criminal groups these criminal groups dedicate themselves to money laundering, which are then used in legal enterprises and legal business. But our task is to go on investigating and to know what are the new trends in criminal groups. The interests of these criminal groups are to be found in the whole of Europe, in Latin America and the Caribbean region. And the risk is that they are growing more and more, especially thanks to the developments of artificial intelligence. So, on our side, it is indispensable to open a debate on digital money laundering, on virtual money laundering. At the same time, we now know that our methods are not updated to those of criminal groups. From a legislative and from a practical point of view, we need to update our techniques because most times we get to see just the tip of the iceberg, because maybe we can discover some isolated incidents, but they can reveal what's behind them, and most times they reveal that there's a huge organization behind. Our task is to apply in a very concrete and fast way criminal laws to specific cases that are found. Legislation of the European Union and the common guidelines for investigation and for the European investigation processes led to significant results for us in terms of fighting drug trafficking. Anyway, we have to take into account the different types of criminal actions. But in conclusion, I have to say that we need to harmonize legislations and actions because it's a matter of very complex issues we're talking about. We have to deal with the international drug trafficking, and we have to take into consideration new routes. This kind of business is the primary source of income for criminal groups. It's an alarming situation in the Mediterranean area, in Latin America and in the Caribbean. Very young children are both crack consumers and drug mules and drug sellers. So this is a vicious circle that links international criminal groups to local cases, local networks. This is devastating for the economical stability of each country and for the future of younger generations who are left without defenses, without protection. So we need to go on working, and we need to get inspiration from the Convention of the United Nations.
Comitato direttivo.
As a representative of the steering committee of the Higher School for Magistracy, we have Mr. Roberto Giovanni Conti. Please try and be concise. Thank you, Mr. President. I bring you the greetings by Mrs. Sciarra, who is the president of the steering committee of our Higher School of the Magistracy. It's a great pleasure to be here at this conference dedicated to the memory of Giovanni Falcone, his wife Morvillo, and the 3 bodyguards who were killed. So here I am today representing the Higher School of Magistracy that in the latest 10 years have been representing the independence of magistrates and have been focusing on the cooperation between among the different structures involved in the judiciary. This meeting that has covered many issues and that is being held during 3 days is a very timely initiative, and of course our higher school could not miss such an important event. We dedicate our efforts to long life learning and long life training, and we cooperate with other higher schools abroad because the issues of judiciary assistance and cooperation in terms of criminal and civil justice are very important to us. In such a way, our school would like to engage in very ambitious projects, would like to fill gaps and build bridges. Our school is witnessing the long-term work and the resilience of those prosecutors who have worked so hard and who have given their lives in order to fulfill their working mission. It seems to us that this conference bridges a gap between memory which is important to remember our past, and our future route. The goal is to prevent those things from happening again. At the same time, we would like to generate a better future, relying on those memories, on that legacy. So now we are here in order to listen carefully, to enjoy the technical presentations that will be held. And so I want to thank you all, and I wish you a fruitful conference. Thank you.
Che il Presidente del Consiglio dell'Ordine degli Avvocati di Palermo, l'Avvocato...
I can see Mr. Dario Greco, and I kindly ask him to stick to the 5 minutes for the presentation. Yes, I'll keep my promise. I welcome you on behalf of the Lawyers' Council of Palermo, and thank you for inviting us here today and giving us the chance to take part in this initiative also yesterday together with magistrates, lawyers, and local schools. We are here in this place which shall be open to the community. The square, these 2 buildings, are not only court halls, but they are only the place for legality and justice. I'd like to share with you something that happened to me a few days ago when I took part to a conference on mafia psychology. And I tried to use ChatGPT and asked the ChatGPT to write something about mafia psychology, and the incredible results is the following. It says, yesterday or in the past, mafia psychology allowed to study internal dynamics of criminal families, underlining the important role of respect, of honor, of loyalty as fundamental values. This is extremely wrong. There's no mafia, there's no organized crime which is positive or bad. In the 70s, Peppino Impastato gave, according to me, one of the best definitions of mafia, defining mafia as a mountain of S ... I will not say that word. So fight against criminal activities. Falcone and the Anti-Mafia pool teach us a lot. This is an important fight we have to keep carrying out all together. No one should be left behind. Local lawyers support the magistracy, the police force, the legal authorities, appreciating their constant work. We have to fight against mafia, of course, tackling illegal capitals. This is true. But we also have to implement a cultural effort. We have to make people change their mind. And since 1992, here in Palermo, a lot of people changed their attitude, their perspective, but there's still a lot of work to do, especially in schools. So these occasions, and I conclude, are extremely important to allow an exchange of experiences, of professionalism. And under this point of view, lawyers are ready to cooperate. We have to go out of court hall, investigation centers. We have to go to neighborhoods in cities, to schools, to let people know that mafia is the cancer of our land. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Greco, who managed to keep the promise. And now Giovanni Tartaglia Polcini, I thank him for organizing this conference, and I ask him one last sacrifice to stick to the 5 minutes. Good morning. Powerful transnational organized crimes represent a global threat. They have an important influence on drug trafficking and migration flows. They create a network. They take advantage of digitization, globalization, and they are now developing a real narco culture. Drug trafficking managed to unite mafia from all over the world, allowing for money laundering, illegal capitals, corruption, undermining the power of states. The production of cocaine has increased. New drugs represent new threats. After years since the adoption of the Conventions of Vienna and Palermo, today several reflections are important. The instruments we have for judicial cooperations are not enough. We have to do more. This is why we decided to organize this meeting here in Palermo, and this is the role of the European Programme against the Transnational Organized Crime and the Falcone Borsellino Programme of Judicial Diplomacy of the Ministry for Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation and the Latin America organization. We need more international cooperation. an increased fight against illegal capitals. We have to do more with the magistrates. We have to create networks to cooperate, to improve our investigation techniques. There are people changing the history of countries and on the world, and Giovanni Falcone is today one of these people. So it is an honor and a privilege for us to be here to welcome more than 200 people, magistrates, investigators representing 20 countries for an open dialogue and a positive relation and cooperation, remembering Giovanni Falcone and working together. Thank you very much.
Perché una voce debole. Allora, no, volevo dirvi subito che avevo...
I apologize for underestimate the emotional aspects of this meeting because it's the first time I come here after several years. I wanted to add something else. Giovanni Falcone didn't like celebrations, commemorations, but I think he would have been happy, more than happy, to take part in this conference, focusing on coordination of fight against organized crime and mafia. This is the first conference of this kind organized at an international level, as far as I know. This meeting was organized by Mr. Giovanni Melillo, engaged in the defense of the work of magistrates within the fight against mafia. And we follow the example of Giovanni Falcone. As he said in his book, he wanted an harmonious judicial cooperation and cooperation among states. Now, we'll move on with the other participants, and I kindly ask you, all of you, to stick to your time. And I'll give now the floor to the General Prosecutor of Colombia, Luz Adriana Camargo. So, Luz Adriana Camargo, General Prosecutors of Colombia. She coordinates the work of the judicial police. In Colombia, we have a very particular situation due to the relation between drug trafficking and terrorism. The floor is yours. Good morning. I'd like to start my speech thanking the Latin American and Italian organization for organizing this event, allowing me to take part in this conference so important for the exchange of knowledge and experiences in the field of the fight against drug trafficking and international organized crime. I would also like to thank the Falcone Borsellino Programme, always leading an important reflection of drug trafficking and organized crime at an international level. And I also thank the Court of Palermo and the other organizations that contributes to the creation of this event. I appreciate the work of Italian judges, magistrates, and lawyers. So thank you all for welcoming us here today. Italian and Latin American judges always cooperate together in the fight against organized crime, and they meet here today in an iconic city, the city of Palermo, to honor the memory and the fight of Giovanni Falcone, who was killed in this city. And we celebrate this year the 32nd anniversary of his death. Giovanni Falcone is a very important person, and we have to keep this in mind when fighting against drug trafficking and international crimes committed by criminal organizations. So the fight against this kind of crime is extremely important, and the commitment of Italian judges is pivotal. This is our mission. As it was mentioned yesterday, Judge Falcone was an important reference point at an international level in the fight against drug trafficking and mafia. As General Prosecutor of Colombia, I take part at this meeting, and I firmly believe that this fight against drug trafficking and organized crime is extremely important, as we all keep acting in this direction. Of course, we know hundreds of people died in this fight: investigators, police agents, judges, prosecutors. Also, thousands of people, like journalists, who sacrificed their lives for this cause and fight. We know that organized crimes has a lot of interest in today's society. For example, financial, social, political interests. This is why we have to reflect on the challenge we have to fight, and we are not alone in this task. As it was mentioned yesterday, we have common memories and challenges, problems, so we have to react together. This is the dynamic cooperation to reinforce Latin America and Europe. Together with national efforts, we have to implement judicial cooperation and coordination. This is the main aspect of all speeches yesterday and today. It is important to share information among the member countries of the network fighting against organized crime, and this is an important goal to reach. And for this, we need cooperation and trust among public prosecutors and ministries. We have important tools such as the common investigation groups. Very important to act at the same time against criminal organizations in each country. Sharing information and data in a tempestive manner in order to guide our actions and to react to these challenges. We have all the means we need to gather evidences for trials, and we can implement undercover activities. From the perspective of Colombia, we're always eager to learn from you and to share our experiences in this common fight against drug trafficking, for which we implemented the main mechanisms of judicial investigation. For several years, my country has experienced violence. This is why we want to improve our work through the authorities in several regions, especially in the fight against drug trafficking. Over the last years, we saw the rise of new illicit economics, for example, migrants traffic and other kinds of traffic, and then drug cartels, for example, in Cali, Medellin. But we managed to dismantle these cartels. However, drug trafficking is still present in the country, concentrated in the hands of few people and acting through different methods. So today we assist to a sort of outsourcing of drug trafficking. There are small gangs having strong relationships between them. We have groups responsible for the installation, the creation of drug laboratories for the treatment of coca leaves. Other groups are responsible for the production of chemical resources, other for the transport, and then the selling and smuggling of drugs abroad. So drug trafficking represents a very complicated criminal activity. We implemented several investigation strategies, integrated strategies. We also have to focus on cultivation of plants, on the provision of chemical resources, and then money laundering. We are highly committed in this fight. We need specialized human resources and support. We need cooperation at different levels. Over the last 4 years in Colombia, hundreds of people were sent to trial in the fight against drug trafficking and organized crime. We had 1,835 people convicted, 485 people from the National Army were implied from the National Army in this fight. But despite all these trials, drug trafficking has not stopped. So what should we do now? As prosecutors and judges, we should keep working to tackle this situation. Of course, prosecutors have to face several difficulties, and organized crime is changing a lot. So we have to support the process of gathering of evidence through appropriate methods and strategies. We know these techniques. These are not new techniques. They are recommended by international law and included within the Palermo Convention, for example, the electronic monitoring, satellite communication, and also the selective research of data and other techniques, for example, the participation of undercover agents. At the same time, concerning our national experience, we know that we have to analyze each piece of information within criminal investigations. We also have to focus on other matters. We have specialized organizations within our civil society. This is why we have to broaden our horizons in order to identify the new strategies of organized crime. We have to adopt specialized protocols for the exploitation of data, allowing investigators, judges, prosecutors to learn and to identify the high volumes. This allows us to understand how organized crimes act. We have to keep implementing and putting into practice the teaching of Mr. Falcone and Mr. Borsellino. We have to highlight the importance of roots and drug trafficking. This is why it is important to study also financial information available since the first steps of each investigation. This is the starting point and also the crucial point for our investigations. This kind of information is pivotal also to track money within money laundering operations, as criminal organizations base their activity on money laundering. So we have to track and monitor the trafficking of drugs. And as I mentioned before, leaders became invisible, and also they modernized nowadays to preserve their identity and to keep their identity and goal secret. For these reasons and other reasons mentioned by my colleagues, judges, experts from Latin America and Europe, I kindly invite you to keep working in this way. So we have to pay more attention and to consider drug trafficking not only as a criminal organization. We know that this problem concerns several aspects. This activity is based on the rules of the economic market, so we have to focus on this segment for our investigations so that we can track the movements of illegal capitals. We have to implement a rational approach, so I propose a careful analysis of drug trafficking routes. Therefore, we need strategies to understand and to tackle illegal traffics as a business following market rules, and based, of course, also on the economic interaction. And an example of this, underlying the need for this kind of approach, happened in my country, where there was an overproduction of leaves and coca paste as a consequence of two factors: the improvement of production methods and also because of the dispersion of cultivations. This promoted the increase of production volumes, causing an overproduction of cocaine, reducing the purchase price. And the cost of production for a single leaf of cocaine for the farmer. The former price was much higher compared to the actual price of cocaine, and this situation was exploited by drug smugglers. This is why we have to stress the importance of the analysis of each business, improving also this study and the analysis of illegal cultivation of cocaine. This is not new, of course. We know the situation. But we had to implement educational policies to discourage the consumption of cocaine. This is why we have to focus on this phenomena. We shall not limit our attention to organized crime. The consumption of these drugs increases year after year. We have official data published saying that almost 4% of the global population uses cannabis, and 22 million of people in the world use cocaine. So the overall rate is equal to 4% at a global level. the price of cannabis would decrease if countries such as Colombia, instead of destroying materials and goods confiscated, would focus their attention on other programs, especially for the protection of people addicted to drugs. What would happen to drug smugglers in Colombia if the selling of coca leaves would regulated by the law at higher prices? This would happen to protect the health of people. What would happen if countries such as Colombia would donate drugs to those countries where the consumption of drugs is already legalized? So I express my will and availability to cooperate in the fight against drug trafficking and to cooperate for a better sharing of information in order to tackle these international threats. Drug trafficking caused a lot of victims with the imposition of violence models, favorizing the spreading of this threat. This is why we are asking for new dialogue opportunities to go beyond the simple legal action. Thank you very much.
Grazie dell'intervento.
Thank you for your speech, madam.
Introdurre
Now I'm supposed to introduce Diana Salazar Mendes. The magazine Time has honored her with the 10th position among the most influential people in the world. But she is not here with us. She sent us a video to illustrate us the current situation in Ecuador. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor for me to address so many illustrious people. I want to thank the organizers, the project El Pacto, Mr. Giovanni Merillo, the chief prosecutor, and I want to thank everybody for having me, the academic experts and the lawyers. Thank you for having me at such an important event. Unfortunately, I was not able to travel to Palermo. Technology and the advances of technology caused a change at every level. The situation for us as magistrates is very complicated. However, the possibility of expanding markets in a very easy way generated a higher mobility of people, goods, and services. This is unprecedented, but it also created a chance for illicit markets to prosper more and more. And criminal organizations have the chance to become international. And this is a major threat for people who are trying to guarantee safety in every state. This is a problem with many facets, and it is devastating for many countries. And unfortunately, Latin America is the place where wars of drug traffickers are being held, basically. The roots of drug trafficking and the arrest of important criminal leaders have occurred in recent years. Criminal organizations have grown more and more since they took advantage of the transformation provided by new technologies. That's why we now have new instruments in order to identify the new routes used by drug traffickers. So criminal organizations are just like ordinary companies. They take advantage of new technologies because they want to expand their markets. So criminal organizations are based in some specific countries, but they also facilitate the movement and the migration of other migrants and the involvement of criminals of other countries. Our country, Ecuador, has become now a home for processing illegal substances. We have to say that our country's geography goes to the advantage of criminal organizations that have established close links with other criminal organizations in other countries. So these criminal networks aim at destroying the state through very violent and brutal actions. So now, since criminal organizations have networks all over the world, they are more powerful inside the single states, and they pose a challenge to legal institutions.
Recientes casos expuestos por la Fiscalía.
Most recent cases that were illustrated by our authorities represent wounds for our countries, because the criminal organizations were even able to corrupt political parties, members of the judiciary, lawyers. So this has weakened the integrity of our state, of our judiciary, because we know now that these people who were corrupted among us had key roles inside criminal organizations. And the involvement in criminal organizations affected the decision-making of such people belonging to the state and to the judiciary. Some political members still hold bonds with criminal organizations and have personal relationship with some leaders, with some criminals. And this is a terrible wound for our institutions. But luckily, the criminal organizations were not able to destroy the structure of our state, even though they are certain that the state and our institutions will not punish them. So we have to act in those places where people are poor and when the rule of law doesn't exist, because these people are exposed to corruption and are easily tempted and easily involved by criminal activities. So the democracy itself is at stake now, because we have to guarantee that we go on fighting criminal groups. So in order to show to our society that we are still there, we have clear ideas, we know what our responsibilities are, and we are able to identify and tackle problems. So we have to take concrete actions towards people who are corrupted, and put in place tangible solutions based on our values. So our mission in general is to give new hopes to our society through this fight. Thank you for your attention.
Salazar non è qui per ragioni personali che lei stessa.
Mrs. Salazar couldn't attend this meeting due to personal reasons because she is to be a host at a TV program, but her speech shows us that there's a deep connection between criminal organizations and the corruption of people belonging to the state, to legal authorities. Diana Salazar is very exposed now, as one magistrate working in her office has been recently murdered. So we want to express our deepest feelings of solidarity and closeness to her and to the authorities of Ecuador.
Dopo questo bel saluto all'Attorney General.
After Mrs. Mendez, we now go back to Italy and we listen to Mr. Raffaele Grassi, the Director General of the Criminal Police. I would like him to tell us how the Director of the Italian Criminal Police is interested in the third boundary that is in common with Brazil, Paraguay, and Argentina.
Rivolgo.
Good morning, everybody. I thank all the authorities taking part in this event, both Italian and foreign authorities, to the police forces, and our guests. I've immediately accepted this invitation in this conference with pleasure, as the topic I was asked to speak about is very topical at the moment, and it is part of my work as a Central Director of Criminal Police. As many of you already know, in my role, I'm also in charge for the police activities at an international level, as Italy plays a very authoritative role within the international community of law enforcement. To give you some references concerning the topic I will speak shortly, I would like to introduce the main points of my intervention. First of all, an introduction about the triple border, a panoramic of the main criminal organizations active in the region, focusing especially on the Hezbollah group, then the relations with Italian criminal organizations, a focus on some factors of weakness, then the Primero Comando do Capital, another criminal organization, and then I will conclude my intervention talking about the so-called Italy system and the way we are promoting it at a national level. Start from my first point. The introduction for this intervention, of course, will focus on a general framework of the tribal border, as I think that in order to fully understand criminal dynamics, it is important to know the geographical configuration of the area. The tribal border represents the strategic access point to a network for river transport of more than 3,500 kilometers of length, allowing the constant navigation between the ports of Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay to reach the Atlantic Ocean. The increase of naval activity in this natural channel has allowed to decrease the cost of transport for high volumes of goods and to integrate several areas. Transnational organized criminal organizations active in the area have immediately understood the advantage of this way of transport and started to contaminate legal cargoes with illegal goods. We know that the geographical characteristics of the area hinder the controls by the state on circulation of vehicles, of goods. At this river crossroads, there are several urban centers counting over 700,000 inhabitants and characterized by a high cross-border mobility of population. For example, during the pandemics, several people moved between Paraguay and Argentina to receive special treatments. The cities are extremely close to each other and share a common commercial hub. There are special money exchange conditions, for example. Every day, around 15,000 vehicles cross the bridges between these countries. In the region of the tribal border, there are citizens of several nationalities, Indians, Chinese, Lebanese, Syrians, and Europeans. We can understand that the tribal border offers a unique configuration for each of particular geographical and economic and cultural characteristics, making it the ideal spot for illegal activities. So smugglers exploit the land and river borders for the transport of goods, very often hidden in legal cargoes of goods. Policies implemented in the three countries and the different policies allow criminals to exploit the legal void to act. Furthermore, the presence of different communities is the base for the recruitment of new members and the corruption of local officers. The tribal border is known to be an important logistic crossroads for the international drug trafficking, playing a pivotal role in facilitating the transport of drugs for the main production sites in Latin America to the consumption sites in Northern America, Europe, and beyond. Estimates suggest that important quantities of cocaine and other illegal drugs pass through this region every year. Even if it is difficult to know the exact volumes of drug transiting in the area, the seizing operations by the legal force show that we have hundreds of tons of drugs. After the short introduction, I would like to talk about criminal organizations active in the area, starting by the Hezbollah group and the historical reasons behind their activity. After the terrorist attack of 2001, the United States have strengthened their presence in the area. Also through the cooperation of cross-border countries in the region, and through the support of the main law enforcement and intelligence agencies at an international level. This because the main cities of the area since the end of the 60s have experienced an important immigration of people coming from the Middle East, fleeing wars and instability. Today, the descendants of the Arab community represent the second community living in South America. They're mainly of coming from Lebanon, and we monitor traffic from Brazil to Lebanon, making international agencies suspecting terrorism and illegal activities. We remember, of course, the Cassandra operation of the Anti-Drug Agency of the United States, which in 2008 underlined the complex network of Hezbollah in the region, underlying the need for a better cooperation at an international level. Already in the 90s, with the attacks in Argentina at the Israel embassy, and then at the headquarters of Association 94, actions in the area had been reinforced, as the Hezbollah group was suspected for being the responsible of these attacks. And today, Hezbollah seems to be the strongest organization in the area, making the tribal border a sort of South American base from which to guide and coordinate their activities in cooperation with other criminal organizations as international mafias, including Italian and Chinese mafia. Beyond illegal activities such as drug trafficking, arms trafficking, and money laundering, Hezbollah is interested in the purchase of lands to be transformed in training camps for its members. Some politologists define the tribal border as the more active financial hub of Hezbollah in terms of money laundering. United States military authorities said that this organization, since the beginning of the 21st century, has created and generated elevated profits. The American Anti-Drug Association identified drug trials of Hezbollah. In 2018, Argentinian forces frozen the assets of Lebanese organization called Clan Barakat, having relations with Hezbollah. And since 2004, the Treasury Department of the United States had included this organization in a specific list for smugglers in the tribal border. The authorities of Paraguay arrested a Lebanese citizen who was then transferred to the United States, responsible for money laundering issued from drug trafficking for $300 million per year. In 2018, the perception that the tribal border is or can be a sort of shelter, refugee for members of international crime has always drew the attention of investigators and analysts, especially after the attacks of the 11th of September 2001. This hypothesis is also supported, especially in the United States, by the fact that the tribal border is a sort of no man's land with no control by the specific governments. Since the 80s, the presence of cells of religious criminal groups such as Hamas and Al-Qaeda has been established. To understand the importance of the presence of these criminal groups in the area, intelligence organizations said that Osama bin Laden possibly passed through the tribal border in '85. Besides criminal organizations I mentioned over the years, the presence of several criminal groups was detected in the area. For example, FARC, the armed force of Colombia, the Clan Barakat I mentioned before, the Comando Vermelho in Brazil, the EPP, El Clan Rotella in Paraguay, Mafia Paramense, the PCC, Primeiro Comando do Capital in Brazil. This one is the biggest criminal organization in Brazil and present especially in the areas of Sao Paulo and the tribal border. It is an important actor within the drug trafficking, also thanks to its relations with Hezbollah and the Drangheta. Concerning the PCC, the Primeiro Comando do Capital, I say something more later. We also have local groups active in drug trafficking, especially at the border with Paraguay, and then Chinese criminal organizations active in the area, controlling part of the containers traffic coming from Asia. They are especially active in the field of counterfeiting. It's estimated that Paraguay monthly receives between $35 and $40 million of false goods. It is extremely important to focus on the tribal border due to the intense presence of criminal organizations and for the presence of international fugitives. Also because it is the place where an important part of drug trafficking at an international level is managed. We have important volumes of drugs transported and managed in the area. In 2023, local authorities seized around 170,000 tons of drugs. We also detected the trafficking of arms. As a consequence, we have to reflect on the relations of criminal organizations at the tribal borders with European Mafia and Italian associations especially. In Italy, Mafia organizations, and especially the 'Ndrangheta, have always developed important relations with South American organizations, especially in the field of drug trafficking. And these connections are based on economic interests and also on the organizational stability, making these cooperations extremely positive. Italian mafias, with their strict code of honor, their structure, well-organized structures, are considered to be the ideal partner for South American organizations. From investigations conducted by Italian authorities, it emerged that there is a great respect by Brazilian organization towards the 'Ndrangheta. This respect is based on the admiration for the discipline of the 'Ndrangheta and the ability to conduct illegal affairs, promoting the respect of agreements, mutual trust. And this attitude is considered to be correct from a criminal point of view, making the 'Ndrangheta as a reliable partner and reference point for South American organizations try to imitate the 'Ndrangheta to improve their operational safety. The alliance between these organizations is not limited to drug trafficking, but goes beyond it, including money laundering operations, armed trafficking, and other illegal activities. South America has become the operational basis for other operations, leading to this cooperation between the organizations. And recently, the 'Ndrangheta was also found to have important connections with the Albanian Mafia. Recent investigations show that the 'Ndrangheta has criminal interests in the region between Paraguay, Argentina, Brazil, and Uruguay. I would like to recall the arrest of the mafia leader Mancuso in the tribal border area in 2014, while he was trying to cross the border illegally, and the arrest in 2021 of Vincenzo Pasquino with the Paraguayan documents with false identity. And we can affirm that the 'Ndrangheta is so well eradicated in the social tissue of Brazil that some of its members fled to Brazil, such as Rocco Morabito, one of the most important drug traffickers who was arrested in 2017 in Uruguay after researches for 23 years. As you may know, after less than 2 years of detection, Rocco Morabito managed to flee the prison in Montevideo in June 2019. Thanks to a very complex investigation activity and excellent police cooperation supported by the Interpol project financed by our country, Rocco Morabito was localized and arrested in Brazil in May 2021. He was then extradited in Italy in 2022. Now I will analyze some regional factors which could be considered as weakness factors, focusing especially on Paraguay. When in 2021, the analysis document assessing the presence of organized crime in the member states of the United Nations was published, the Global Organized Crime Index, Paraguay was not among the first 15 countries of the list. It was considered to be a safe country. However, it already showed the signs of the presence of organized crime. In 2023, Paraguay ranked fourth among the 193 countries of the list, behind Colombia, Mexico, and Myanmar. Several investigations, which involved over the years politicians and public officers, made understand that the situation has changed over the last years in the country. And the murder of the prosecutors Pecci in May 2022 finally gave the idea of the international importance of what was happening in Paraguay. Mr. Pecci was investigated on money laundering when he was murdered during his honeymoon in Colombia. We could try to identify some factors contributed to explain how this country can be listed as the one with a higher presence of criminals. The first one is the oppression of police forces in the ports of Argentina and Brazil. For this reason, Paraguay became an international center of cocaine distribution thanks to its geographical position, very close to the main centers of production of this drug, Peru and Bolivia. And then the exploitation of river transports for the transport of illegal goods. This plays, of course, a pivotal role. We can also underline the weak border controls. In the area between Argentina and Paraguay, there are many points to cross the border legally. The traffic of arms and tobaccos and counterfeited products represent another important weakness factors for Paraguay to take into account.
So this tells us that in Paraguay, criminal groups are able to project their criminal activities in all the country bordering the tribal border. The PCC has infiltrated in Paraguay recently. When the Colombians entered Paraguay, more and more murders happened. So I was sorry, I meant Brazilian killers, the PCC. So this group uses very sophisticated communication means and that make this organization more resilient and more difficult to be penetrated by police forces. This group is basically a commando. It has many weapons and it it is extremely violent in deploying its activities. They also participate in legal businesses in order to launder the money acquired to drug trafficking and to infiltrate in the legal, healthy economics of our state, of the state. It also organizes drug trafficking, and is also it also has a strong presence in prisons, where it is able to coordinate attacks against enemies. So today we have a specific presentation on the PCC by a very important guest who's here with us. So later on you will hear more about it. But there are similarities between the PCC and some other organizations, such as the 'Ndrangheta, the Calabrian Mafia. The PCC could have taken inspiration by the 'Ndrangheta, because it now is more coherent within itself, and it has a very firm structure. What about its evolution in the mid and short term? Well, according to the Italian experience, the mafias do not recur to explicit violence. Extreme violence has decreased in favor of corruption and in favor of the infiltration in the legal economy. Such a scenario requires a very sophisticated approach and very specific methods in order to contrast illegal activities and possibly dismantle the networks aimed at controlling and monitoring the criminal activities within the network. So this event tells us that Italy has very innovative approaches in order to contrast the criminal organizations. Now I would like to conclude. Please allow me to be proud. I meet so many representatives from foreign police forces. We are asked all the time to have a better knowledge about the Italian system. Everybody is curious about our system. Now, the triple frontier, the triple border, poses a high challenge to us. It requires a multifaceted approach. Thanks to the cooperation with bordering countries, we have seen some progress. However, in order to be more successful, we need to go beyond. We need to work on prevention through inclusion policies that make criminal organizations less and less attractive for ordinary people. And international cooperation must be strengthened, because through joint efforts and with the support of international organizations, we hope we can guarantee a safe future for the triple border. So it is essential that all countries engaged in contrast operations share information in real time and cooperate in a very tight way in safety operations. If we think about possible initiatives, I would like to promote as a valid way of operating the system that we have in Italy. It's an approach to contrast international crime organizations that has a very solid structures. it consists in mapping influence areas and knowledge of operational ways of the criminal organizations, even from an economic point of view. Then we have to arrest people who belong to this organization, and we have to track down their investments. We have to confiscate the assets that are the proceeds of illegal activities, and in so doing, thanks to the cooperation with the authority that I am honored to chair, we have seen the approval by the General Secretary of Europol. There are 3 initiatives by Europol. Mapping criminal organizations, identifying, getting to know, and mapping international crime organizations. This is indispensable, and it will be a future project that is now starting. And this is based on the principle follow the money, elaborated by Giovanni Falcone. It's a method that Italy has been developing and that has proved successful. The second initiative is represented by the project I Can. It means arresting people belonging to the Calabrian Mafia and the spreading of the news at an international level that the 'ndrangheta is very dangerous, because most people around the world do not know how dangerous the Calabrian Mafia is. Since January 2019, there have been so many arrests of people belonging to this Calabrian Mafia, the 'ndrangheta. We also have to work in terms of confiscations of assets belonging to the mafias. It is crucial to map criminal groups, and in such a perspective, the project I Can is now a reality, because it spreads awareness about the 'ndrangheta, and it also indirectly allows the capture of criminals belonging to the 'ndrangheta. Because if we are able to capture the leaders of such groups, we can really weaken the whole organization, undermine it. There is also a specific legal framework in order to fight the mafia from an economic and financial point of view. And the third initiative, sponsored by Italy, goes towards this direction. It is the setup of an Interpol database. The aim is to track down illicit assets owned by criminal groups at an international level. There are 196 countries members of this initiative. And this initiative will hopefully become a sort of the opportunity to arrange for an international seizure mandate. We hope that this initiative will be approved in June this year, and following approval, the pilot phase will start after approval. And this is useful in order to identify problems and strong points. So, as we know, Italy has gained many good results by seizing assets belonging to the mafias. These actions are now a fundamental component within the national strategy against organized crime. We want to hit the mafias where it hurts, and this is their economic assets. I would like to conclude now by highlighting that the instruments adopted by Italy that boosts a long tradition based on our experience and on our sacrifices, on the sacrifices of those who lost their lives in this battle. Well, all of that is an inspiration for the people who are now facing the same threats. Within such a context, we really appreciate the efforts made by Latin American countries who included in their legal frameworks those belonging to the Italian systems and that are dedicated to the fight against the mafia. These instruments proved valid in disassembling criminal groups and their assets, but they also proved efficient in reinforcing the feelings and the love for the rule of law and for legality. Italy has been a source of inspiration for those countries who are involved in the fight against criminal organizations. I'm very proud that the Italian model shows that the seizure of assets and prevention measures are efficient. It promotes a renewal of society and of economic life, and it will provide more and more trust in the institutions of the country. Thank you so much.
Dopo questa relazione particolarmente documentata,
Following this very detailed and high-profile report, I would suggest to have a coffee break, maximum 10 minutes, so we can relax.